Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's working. Hey, Sadat. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you. It's kind of weird because I was in this room like a few weeks ago with Kumresh, but I saw those books on the table and I was like fascinated by the fact that there's other people that are that meticulous about their diet and want to self-educate themselves on health. And Kumresh was telling me how you did like a lot of your own research for your body and stuff. So that's why I wanted to do this podcast.
Yeah, I think as reading more about other people's experiences, there's some health issues where this becomes a matter of life or death. And I just became very, very motivated very quickly to try and solve things. So that's where some of that motivation stems from.
Gotcha, yeah. And just to clarify, like I know Kumresh said you eat like a lot of meat. So are you like completely carnivore diet or what is your diet basically if you want to explain that?
So at the present moment, I would say I'm mostly carnivore. The only non-carnivore thing I've started to consume over the last couple of weeks is avocado. So a
Okay.
typical day for me would look like, and just to make it clear for people watching, I do a medical ketogenic diet. So that means that I have to be very prescriptive about how much protein I consume. So I can only consume a certain amount of protein and I have to fill the rest with fat. So for me, a typical day would look something like, maybe 120 gram, 20, 120, 130 grams of protein. I get that through either ground meat, like ground beef, ground lamb, maybe a ribeye, um, eggs.
Okay.
Those are kind of my go-to protein sources.
I love
And
that. Yeah. Those are my go-to protein sources.
yeah, and delicious. Like been doing
Yeah.
this, I don't know, 12 weeks now. It's actually not that hard once you get going. I don't know what's your experience been. Yeah, after like 30 days of doing it, it's like, this
Yeah.
isn't actually that hard.
So my diet is not like strictly carnivore. Like I'll still eat some carbs here and there. I would say I have a low carb diet. I just like to make sure it's well sourced, everything. That's my whole thing. Like I will try to avoid factory farmed meats as much as possible. I'm working with a couple farmers right now to make like social media content, short documentaries, and they're regenerative farmers, so they respect nature's cycles in their food production system. So raising their cows outside, raising their poultry outside, rotating livestock, and enhancing their ecosystem at the same time. That actually produces the most mineral dense foods on our planet. So it's like if you eat eco-friendly foods, those are the healthiest foods to actually consume as well. It's like a win-win there.
Yeah.
So my my whole like obsession is on that ecology side. The health benefits are like an added bonus, and I'm passionate about that as well because I've always been into like fitness and recently lost a lot of weight. And a lot of my main secret weapon to losing all this weight was just eating natural, nutrient-dense foods. So those are the type of videos that I'm gonna start popping out on my YouTube channel, explaining like what to look for in the store for like how do you determine if something's natural or not? Because the words like natural, organic, even these words they get like bastardized by big companies so often. Like just that term, if that's all you're looking for, you can easily be manipulated by big corporations as a consumer. So I'm making videos to talk about what is natural. Like I want to start this diet on the internet called the ecological diet, where I literally break it down like you have to eat organisms that have eaten a wide variety of other organisms, because that's how it's been forever. Like ever since factory farming, have we started like feeding animals just one type of food, just try to fatten them up for production purposes. So that's kind of my interests. Speaking of ribeye, I had a bison ribeye yesterday, and it was grass fed. It's from a company called Tender Bison, and it was incredible. It was $17 for a ribeye, like pretty big ribeye, and I had that with two eggs. So that's like a doctor's worst nightmare. They would say that's way too much cholesterol. That's like a week's worth of cholesterol, they would say.
Mm.
But it's like, how come I'm losing all this weight? How come I'm feeling better than I ever did ever in my whole life? And so it's like there's got to be some corruption in the system of They just want you to put band-aids on gushing wounds, kind of the medical industry, I feel.
Yeah, I think before I had this health experience, I was less of a skeptic, but now that I've had firsthand experience with health indicators, which, we've been conditioned to believe are negative. And to be fair, they're actually based on, I think, a lot of the populations that a lot of this science has come from. It's like good science. However, there hasn't been enough research on people who actually eat this way. Why? Well, there aren't, there haven't historically been that many people who eat this way. I don't know if, okay, so I can go on tangents, but maybe I'll
No
circle
problem.
back. I didn't get fully to my diet piece. So just to fill in the
Yeah,
rest of the
sure.
story, I mentioned some protein sources. We'll fill in some fat sources. Um, I literally drink heavy cream. I have to drink heavy cream, and I do heavy cream, a glass of heavy cream, like 250, 300 grams of heavy cream with
Okay.
MCT oil in it. So I'll literally do like ribeye, um, maybe some sour cream. If I'm having ground meat, actually ground meat plus sour cream gets you to this pretty close to a stroganoff flavor, which is really delicious.
I bet. Yeah.
Gets you a bit more fat in the sour cream, and then I'll have a giant glass of heavy cream that I'll straight up drink. And
That's awesome.
this meal, this meal is one that if you told me this 10 years ago that I would be eating this and that this is now based on my experience now that I would say that's healthy, I would have said you're crazy. You're literally fucking crazy. And you want to know why? We were all told that fat and saturated fat is going to kill you. And
It's
yeah,
not,
it's
there's
crazy. It's crazy.
there's too many factors. Like saturated fat is bad for people depending on a billion other factors. Like what else are they doing? What else are they eating? And are they living a sedentary lifestyle or not? So it's like just to say that saturated fat is the cause of all health problems is like a huge broad statement because evolutionarily our diets have had a lot of saturated fat and we were more active, and so there's more factors to consider than to point out one thing and
Yeah.
say that's like the cause of your health issues. Yeah, but um a lot of what I look at is like where is this food coming from? Like if I buy whatever I buy, I try to make sure it's grass fed and grass finished, and like even those words, grass fed and grass finished, can be bastardized because companies will feed hay bales of one species of grass just to get that grass fed label on the meat. So there's a lot of complexities with that, which is why, like you, as consumers, you just got to do a little bit of research on your own. And once you find a local farmer or a company from like a local farmer, you can just stick with them for a long time, and you don't have
Yeah.
to research all the time. So that's kind of what I'm trying to promote. Like find in your area what's available, the best options, and price is a huge factor. People always tell me like, yeah, it's expensive to eat healthier, but it's not that much more expensive. For example, the bison ribeye I had yesterday was $17, and it was a big ribeye. And I think it was about 25% more expensive than a non-grass-fed ribeye. And then if you have a ribeye at a restaurant, it's like $50. So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the
I,
same.
I don't know about you. I spend a lot less time and money eating out. So
And I don't eat out.
cost and granted, I live in a big city, so I think probably on average, people here are going out and spending more money out at restaurants.
Yeah.
But the total spend for me on food has gone down drastically. And
Mhm.
why? Well, now that I'm concerned about what the hell I'm eating, most restaurants are not, they almost don't even have options for, like, there's
They don't have options for me either.
so few places that are
Yeah.
serving actual high quality food that I trust. Like I am a huge skeptic now of every place I go to. I'm like, like what
Yeah.
do you cook this in? Like, where did this come from? Like, I'm way less likely to go out and be willing to spend. It does hurt the social side a little bit, but you got to, I
Yeah.
think you make up the social side with other stuff. Like now, maybe I'm more likely to go and spend time in other hobbies with friends versus going out to eat. And I'll still go out to eat sometimes, but
Same.
definitely that spend has come down. And ground, you mentioned ribeye, ground meat. Dude, it's so cheap. I haven't linked up with a local farm yet to find some very, very high quality stuff. So I've
Yeah.
been doing wild fork. I don't know if you know.
I don't, but I'll put that in my notes. I'll pull up a little notes tab for our
Sure.
conversation. Yeah.
Wild Fork, they're a national chain, I believe, but their thing is like flash frozen meat,
Okay.
pretty high quality, and their prices are very reasonable. So you can get organic grass fed ground beef that's $6 a pound.
Mhm. Okay. Wow.
Really good. Their
Six
ground, their
dollars.
ground, their ground lamb is delicious.
Yeah,
$8 a pound. Like that stuff is not that expensive.
exactly. And then if you get into the habit of meal prepping, it's like you just offloaded all that work and is that what you do? You prepare like meals for the week or something like that, or 3 days in advance?
So it depends on what I'm eating, but yeah, the last 4 or 5 days I had made a big batch of ground meat. I had ground beef and lamb, mixed it all together, and I had probably like 5 pounds of that, and I was eating like a pound a day over the course of 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
Another staple for me, I don't know if you've tried this yet. Michaela Peterson talks about this on the Lion Diet.
Oh yeah, I know she's into
Taking
the steak. Yeah.
taking a frozen ribeye, and you have to try this frozen ribeye, toss in the air fryer, 20 minutes at like 450, flip it halfway. Thing comes out delicious. It comes out perfect. It's not as good as a grill, obviously. You're not
Yeah.
going to get quite as nice of a char, but it comes out much better than it sounds.
Yeah.
And the convenience factor is through the roof. There is basically zero prep time, and cleaning is very easy. And it's a big upside for me. I prefer air fried steaks now over grilling for me in my diet. And the reason is in the air fryer, I can actually capture all of the fat that
Hmm.
is in that steak. Whereas on a grill, that's
Like
going to
dripping. Yeah.
drip down. It creates a nice sear, but because I have to do medical keto, like all of the fat I want to be eating. So
Yeah.
I air fryer, grab the fat, and then I'll literally dump all of the fat on top of my steak and almost use it as butter once it
I
starts to.
do the same thing. Yep. That's so cool. I don't do the exact method with the air fryer, but I always try to not lose a drop of that fat because it's so
Yeah,
precious. It's like that's kind of what I paid for. And
exactly.
yeah.
Like you're buying ribeye literally for the fat. Like that. Why
Yeah.
would you get a ribeye and remove any of the fat? Like you're literally buying fatty cut of meat for the fat.
And this reminds me the fat dripping, the fat loss from grilling reminds me of the book by Gary Paulson. It was like one of my favorite books, probably my favorite book as a child, called Hatchet by Gary Paulson.
Dude, same.
You know it? Yeah,
So
that's my book. Like if I had to choose my favorite book,
I
like
haven't read it in forever. What are you referencing out of that book?
so like when he was this may have been in the sequel Brian's Winter, but that's when he killed a moose and he was eating a lot more meat and he was hunting grouse. So he started off by sticking the meat on a stick, putting it over the fire, and then he noticed like all the fat dripping away. And then he switched his method to using a bowl. He found a bowl, I think, from the plane that sunk into the lake. And he got like the care package out of that plane, and there were bowls. So he started cooking in bowls and making kind of like soups and broths that contain everything out of the whatever he hunted.
Oh, dude, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to go back and reread that book because
Yeah.
same thing. That was my favorite book when I was a kid.
And we
Favorite.
have a lot of similarities, I feel. We want to be more connected
Yeah.
to the natural world.
Yeah.
Because like in this modern society, like food, the way it's being made is like behind closed curtains, and then we're over here living our lives, these hectic lives, and then we don't get to see that. Like, where's the food that we eat every day even coming from? That's really weird, when you think about it. Like, we should go. we should be going back to more connection with nature in various ways. And food is like, I think, the most important. We bond over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there are finally, and I feel like actually it was, COVID. I do feel like some of the social media influencers actually did help the space.
I
Um,
agree.
Liver King, maybe helped and hurt. Maybe he did more damage than good. Hard to say.
Maybe.
But that I think allowed the rise of Paul Saladino.
Yeah,
I
I
think
love Paul Saladino's
think a
content.
lot of his growth actually stemmed from Liver King. Like
Yeah.
Liver King didn't do what he did. I don't think that Paul Saladino would be as have as large of a reach as he has. And I disagree with some of Paul's stuff, but in general, I really like the guy. I think he's a critical thinker. I
Yeah.
think he clearly spends a lot of time actually going through and understanding the literature.
Yeah.
He might interpret it a little bit differently than me sometimes, but he's actually putting in the work. There's a lot of people in that space in nutrition, wellness, who make claims and talk like they're experts. They don't read
Shit. They don't
they
read
don't
any.
read shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like these people spout off things that they heard from other people. They spout off things based on trial and error, not based on science. And you can take it too far. You can definitely take, and I've definitely seen some people in this space. For example, Lane Norton. I think that you can be a little bit too rigid in your thinking and say, I have to operate off of science. Otherwise, I can't believe anything. Like, show me the RCT. Show me the RCT. Well, what what is how do you discover something new? Well, you might try something yourself. You might hear from other people based on their trial and error, like, oh, here's something that is really affecting me and like actually really making a difference in me. You start to see, starts off as an anecdote, and then pretty soon you have enough anecdotes for a signal. And that signal might not be the strength that you would prefer because it hasn't been studied in an RCT yet. But let's not let's not just ignore, it's still a signal. I don't think you should be ignoring signals. You take in that signal, you allow it to change your perspective. And yeah, anyways, it just seems like there's a lot of things
What?
in space that people don't have an open mind. They think that all of these scientists and researchers, they are the single source of truth. And I can tell you from my experience now with bipolar disorder that there is a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise and there's a lot of things that people don't fully understand. They do their trial and error, come up with whatever their working model is, and there's a lot of noise in the space, a lot of noise.
Yeah. What is an RCT that you mentioned?
Randomized control trial.
Okay. Do you know what a LCA is?
No.
Life cycle assessment. So life cycle assessment just determines the overall carbon footprint of a product from its inception to the point it's on the shelf, ready to be sold. And grass-fed meats have a lot of them have been tested to have a negative LCA, meaning like from the point that cow was alive and roaming about the grasslands to the point where it's a steak, that steak has a negative carbon footprint because the impact the cattle had on the grassland actually helped the grassland sequester more carbon than if there were no cows on it. And that's stuff that I'm writing in my essay. And like you mentioned, the information, where you get your information from is that's kind of what I'm doing my grad studies on. I'm pursuing a master's degree in conservation biology, so I have to spend a lot of time sifting through Google Scholar and beefing up my claims and my essays and papers with
Yeah,
Google Scholar references. Yeah.
that's awesome. I think it's I
So
think it's hugely important.
yeah.
I right now am going through um yeah, you probably saw some of the books that were on my coffee table. I've added some more books in the last couple weeks.
Okay.
There's a there's a there's this entire field of medicine. I'll have to go back and reread the Wikipedia page, but It's called orthomolecular medicine.
Okay.
Orthomolecular medicine was kind of deemed quackery or like just unscientific. And what orthomolecular medicine was the usage of nutrients and food to treat illness. And this entire field of science was dismissed. And frankly, I think even today, not enough people have gone back and taken a serious look. So, what I just did in psychiatry, there's this guy named Carl Pfeiffer who was a researcher. I think he was nominated for the Nobel Prize for his work in schizophrenia, is what I remember.
Okay.
He wrote a book about the usage of nutrients in treating mental illness. This book was published in 1988. And
Okay.
at this point, this is how little trust I have that there are people today who have actually gone back and just understand everything. I myself, I went out and I bought that book. This thing was published in 1988. Before
Well,
this experience, I would have said it's probably not worth my time to read a book from back then because, I would assume that all the books today are built atop this, i.e., whatever's in this book is probably old and outdated. And,
mhm.
I haven't read it yet. And that maybe it is partially true, but I am not going to operate on the opinions of others the fully. I'm going to go back and I'm going to understand the roots myself, make my own judgments, and go from there. So I literally have a book from 1988 on orthomolecular medicine, a
That's
field
awesome.
deemed quackery, because well now I'm kind of skeptical. And now I'm skeptical of the reason why orthomolecular medicine was dismissed. And now I'm wondering if this guy actually, maybe he was onto something and maybe there's not enough people who have taken a serious look at his work.
Oh yeah, to dismiss orthomolecular medicine, which is basically using food to treat health issues, that's obviously true. Like if you eat nothing but Dunkin' Donuts all day, you're not gonna be healthy. It's just like a fact, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and also like there's trace amounts of glyphosate in non-organic foods that can build up within you, and obviously what you ingest is going to have an effect on your health. And the fact that it was dismissed, I think we have to understand that there's governmental agendas. um, and then you don't want to get down that rabbit hole of being a conspiracy theorist. You just have to understand like there's these big companies that control all food in the US, and they have motives that are
Yeah.
not in your best interest in terms of your health, your long-term health. So it's like, yeah, even though it's from 1982, I think the stuff in there is solid because Silent Spring by Rachel Carson is published in 1962, and it's heralded as one of the best books on conservation, because she was raising a lot of concerns about just how the whole system is structured, like the fact that we mass produce food instead of create ecosystems to harvest from the ecosystem, which is also like, dude, I was at my friend's his dad's house in Otisville, Michigan to help his dad. Me and his My friend and I helped his dad clear up food plots for white-tailed deer. So basically we use chainsaws and loppers to cut forests down and create a flat area in the middle of dense Michigan forest, and then we planted clover seeds. So we're just trying to create this patch of clover for deer to come, but um, where I'm going with this is his dad has a lot of land, like 200 acres, and 80 acres is like cornfield. And we had to walk through the cornfield to check up on some of his blinds. And as I was walking in that cornfield, like each step I took felt like I was walking on like crumbled cement. It was like
Hmm.
the soil was hard as rock.
Hmm.
And it's just mind blowing how the corn was even growing. It's like, well, it's growing because we're buying solid state nitrogen from halfway across the globe, who knows where, and we're dumping it. Like this white powder was being dumped every harvest. And so basically, the bacteria, which is actually what plants depend on to grow, bacteria, mycorrhizal fungi, all that has left the soil. It's gone deeper. It's like hiding because we're over inputting nitrogen, and it's a great imbalance. So those bacteria, those mycorrhizal fungi, they leave that topsoil layer. So they're not even involved in the growth of that corn anymore. It's just pure nitrogen. So that is very harmful because each harvest, that soil gets less productive than that first harvest, which is why they're saying we have like 60 harvests left before we run out of food, run out of topsoil.
Yeah.
Um,
What I haven't spent that much time like looking at into the sustainability of, growing crops versus raising animals. Do you have any perspective there?
oh yeah, that's like my whole thing. So like like for cattle, for instance, a cow is a ruminant animal and it should be eating grass, not grain. But I think over 70% of all beef sold in the US was fed a grain diet. So it's a fortified grain diet with additional input into the grain. But wait, what was your question exactly? I forget.
The sustainability of crop versus animal products
Oh yeah.
on the environment and soil, etc.
Crop and livestock, they're all part of they should be helping each other. Like you should run livestock through your crop if possible. That's permaculture, they call it. So if you're growing like a wide variety of vegetables, fruits, crops, you should let some chickens run through there and their droppings will go into that soil and help benefit the crop growth, but it's a lot more complex than that. It's all situational. You have to like look at your ecosystem and make decisions based on what you got going on in your land. Because sometimes chickens will start eating your crops, and then it's like, oh, well, this doesn't work. No, it does work. You need to use guinea fowl or turkeys or another breed of chicken that won't eat your crops and will focus on eating the insects. So then you don't have to buy pesticides, where pesticides end up in the actual food. So it's like it's fascinating to me. Like you're basically making ecosystems. You're studying, you're observing nature very intently. You're seeing what you can do with what nature's giving you, and you make decisions based on that. And then nature supplies. It's just like it's very sustainable.
So the farms that are, organic or ecological, or I don't know what the term's going to be, something that's a very sustainable farm. They're not using pesticides. They're just the cream of the crop.
Yeah, I can
Is
recommend
there
you.
how do these farms understand what you just described? How do they learn this stuff and how do they apply it? Is there like a body of literature? Is there an organizing group? Are there educational resources or organizations that allow these farmers
Oh yeah.
to learn, understand, and apply those principles?
Yeah, I know of two big ones in terms of organizations. One of them is the Center for Agricultural Resilience. That's in Georgia, and it's like a part of White Oak Pastures, which is a massive organic farm. They don't use it's like a haven. It's like a nature paradise. And the guy who owns it, Will Harris, I'm still working with him to make this short documentary and pop out YouTube videos. He was on Joe Rogan. He's a recurring guest on Joe Rogan, and he's got a deep Southern accent, and he's just a farmer who he learned about ecosystems in Africa, in Zimbabwe, when he was younger, and he learned everything he learned about ecosystems. He applied to his land on Georgia, and yeah, they're a booming business, especially after the JRE appearances. They're probably leading the whole regenerative movement. The second biggest farm is Polyface, as far as I know, Polyface Farm in Virginia. Joel Salatin, he's an author. He's written like 20 books. He's like the guy to go to for that type of stuff. But another organization, there's the Center for Agricultural Resilience. There's a bunch of organizations, the Homesteaders Act, but there's this guy named Gabe Brown. He wrote this book. Gabe Brown, he gives these speeches where his audience is just a bunch of farmers, and they're farmers that have been doing it the conventional way. Like most of the food that you see in American shelves, I'm talking about all food. The farmers that make that food are his audience, and he's explaining how to do ecological farming because this guy wrote this book, Dirt to Soil. His name's Gabe Brown. So he is trying to he's trying to regenerate the land, basically, get the soil back to its natural state, because soil should be moist. It should be dark, and he says it should be like dark colored cottage cheese. That's what soil should feel like. But it doesn't feel like that. When I walked on that cornland, oh my God, it was like crumbled cement.
Hard.
Yeah, it was like I picked the piece up and it was just like turned into dust and just like blue. There's not an ounce of moisture in there. There's a bunch of organizations. Gabe Brown, I'm listening to one of his speeches right now that he gave to a bunch of farmers. It's on YouTube. It's got like 3 million views, but it's like a 3 hour speech, and that's just part one. But I'm like fascinated by the topics he's covering because I can actually use a lot of this for my final paper this semester, and the way he explains it is fascinating. So when I go on these walks every evening, I'm listening to that lecture. But yeah, in terms of big organizations, I can recommend CFAR, Center for Agricultural Resilience. There's
Yeah.
more though. I can search them up and send them to you.
Yeah, it's just I think that's it's a space I haven't spent any time here. Like this is all it's all new stuff to me. So it's interesting to learn about, definitely. And I do think like it maybe plays into my purchasing decisions. I actually happened upon white oak.
Oh,
Is it
nice.
white oak pastures?
White Oak Pastures. Yep.
Yep. So I was this medical keto thing I talked about. I have to eat a shitload of fat. I was trying to find a good fat source. I've eventually settled on heavy cream, but what I was trying to do was buy beef fat trimmings, literally just buy straight beef
Oh
fat
yeah.
for me to add to my steak or ground beef, etc. And I happened upon White Oak Pastures in that. So
The
it's
beef
interesting.
tallow. Did you buy their beef tallow?
I have beef tallow from, and again, maybe I should come to you for like how good of quality to find out how good of quality this stuff is. I bought my beef tallow that I have from Chicago Packing Company.
Okay.
It's Wagyu. It's like a very popular brand
Yeah.
of tallow, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how good their
Oh yeah, I
source.
mean that stuff's great for you. It's not like that stuff's bad for you. There is just a better alternative, slightly better alternative, which is nature. Like I always think like we can't beat nature in terms of what nature has to offer. Speaking on like beef fat, like I use beef, I have a jar of beef tallow from White Oak Pastures because I made like an online order where if I got past a certain amount, I get free shipping. So I have a freezer full of White Oak Pastures meat right now and some jars of beef tallow. So every morning, well, I don't eat breakfast. I have more of like a brunch, lunch type first meal of the day. But
Yeah.
every brunch, I get my cast iron and I put a spoon of beef tallow and 2 eggs and some venison sausages, and that
Mm.
just fuels me, man. That just like it's so nutrient dense. Like an egg yolk has all three BCAAs. You don't need to take BCAA powders. You can just eat good egg yolks. And
Yeah.
then the meat has arginine. They're selling arginine powder these days in the fitness community, but it's like, dude, red meat has all this stuff in the right levels, like that your body has evolved for. So I've totally stopped taking supplements. Not against supplements, but like I'm talking about whey protein, pre-workouts. I don't take any of that, and I look the best I have ever looked in my life. Just like exercise and eating healthy. That's about it.
Yeah.
In
It's
terms
funny.
of, oh, go ahead.
My views on supplements have changed drastically from this experience as well. Like I, same as you, very interested in fitness and wellness. And, in lifting weights, you're just constantly told, oh, you need protein, you need protein, you need protein. Unfortunately for me, I was getting a lot of protein for many, many, many years through shit sources. What
Yeah,
shit sources? Protein bars. Dude,
there,
pro
yeah.
most protein bars are full of complete and utter garbage.
I know.
Did you not? There were times, like in college, where I would eat like sometimes
So would
three
I.
sometimes three protein bars a day, sometimes maybe more. They also just, I had a historic really bad sweet tooth. Some of
Yeah,
them
same
taste
too.
like candy bars. Like they're filled with shit, and they're also made to taste like candy bars. And you eat them under the guise of, oh, I'm like getting my protein, but it's a sad excuse to consume crap. And instead, what you should be doing is eating real food.
Oh yeah.
Real food. So I actually now I'm like, I, if I'm taking a supplement, especially protein now, I'm like, that's a clear sign that there's something wrong with my diet. I think for
Yeah,
me,
same here.
I understand the usage in if you're like, for example, maybe you can't transport your food very well, or you have some type of logistical constraint that prevents you from eating real food as easily. Maybe from a convenience factor, I could see taking a protein powder. And this is my perspective. In my diet, there is no room for protein powder. Why? Well, I need this much protein and I need a shitload of fat.
Yeah.
What what does protein powder lack? Protein
Fat.
powder, I could add oils and shit to my shakes, but why would I do that? If I took protein powder, I'm just like adding to my protein bucket while my fat bucket remains zero. So instead of doing that, why don't I eat real protein, real fatty protein that adds to both of my buckets at the same time? So for in
Yeah.
my diet, there is no room for protein powder because I'm
That's all.
trying to fill both these buckets.
Yeah, and this that raises controversy because that's like $1 billion business right there. And everybody, all these companies trying to sell their products, they're like, they won't like what we just said, you know? So it's
Yeah.
difficult. So I try not to be like attacking those companies. I like to just talk about what I got going on, which is natural food, a natural food diet. And I like to stay in my lane here because there's so many business incentives and they'll come at you, bro, if you say that we're basically saying we don't need them to exist. Like we don't need whey protein
Dude,
because yeah.
same thing. How do influencers monetize? Well, sadly, a lot of them in this space are monetizing through selling supplements. So
Yeah.
even and I'm this is there's nothing against this. Like I think at the end of the day, human beings need to make a living. They need to sustain themselves. And some of these influencers actually do provide a service.
Yeah.
So I do think that they should be rewarded for their efforts. And unfortunately, though, like one of the best ways for a lot of them to do that is through supplements. Like I wish that there was a better way to reward the work of people who are putting out content that actually like is legitimately good for society.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does suck. It does suck that they have to do that. But I understand like from a business perspective, from a you need to monetize your brand perspective. Like if you don't have a tangible good or service to sell, you're gonna need to find some. You need like how are you gonna make money? That's how you make money. So
Yeah.
find a good to sell and sell it. You've got the brand. Now go and sell your brand. Like I get
And
it.
not all supplements are bad. Like some supplements are actually good. Like for instance, I take different mushroom species. Every now and then I'll put some cordyceps, lion's mane in my coffee, but it's a highly unprocessed supplement. It's literally a mushroom. Like there's like disparities between supplements. Like a lot of supplements are so highly processed, they have like an ingredient list like the size of a small article, but like my supplements are stuff like lion's mane. And then right now that's all I'm taking, some mushrooms. And you could take like roots and stuff, like ashwagandha. People take ashwagandha for anxiety. So like I wouldn't say all supplements are bad, but like the ones that are highly processed are unnecessary because like you said, the protein bars, they have a bunch of crap in it. Like
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
one good yeah, one good thing for viewers, whoever's watching right now, to determine if something's natural is just look at that ingredient list. If it's super long, that's just like a good rule of thumb that it's probably not natural. If it's
Yeah.
a short one, four ingredients,
Yeah.
that's a good sign.
I'll revise my statement and just make sure that it's clear. I definitely believe in supplements. I believe that there are good supplements. What I would make the argument against, though, is if you are needing supplementation, it maybe is an indication that your diet needs work.
Right, right. I
Like
agree.
I see supplementation now as a band-aid. The supplementation is a band-aid for an underlying issue. I also now see, at least for some disease and some disorders, Medication is the equivalent of a Band-Aid. So I've had psoriasis for an extremely long time now dealing with bipolar disorder. Psoriasis, there are some medications you can take, topicals, biologic injections, things that you can do to work around the issue. But do you want to know what the issue is? The issue is your diet. And
I agree.
if you change your diet, you might see, and there's a pretty good chance that you will, if you make enough changes, your psoriasis is going to go away. So you can choose to either take the biologic, you can apply the steroid cream, you can apply these various topicals, which mm, are debatable in terms of um, their efficacy is not debatable. Like it does work. I've used some of these.
Mhm.
However, what are the cons? What are the side effects? So yeah,
Yeah.
basically like I'll slap a band-aid with some side effects, or I can go in and I can address the root issue. And if you address the root issue, that actually also comes with side effects. But those side effects, guess what? They're basically all positive.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing about a lot of the side effects. Even in the food production system, there's side effects to pesticides, herbicides, because the word side means to kill. So if you buy a pesticide to t try and target this one weed, it's going to start killing more than just that weed. So those are the negative side effects of using that pesticide and herbicides, pesticides. Will Harris, I'm basically channeling Will Harris right now, but because this is what he says. But basically, these pesticides, they're going to kill a bunch of other things outside of what you were trying to kill, and those other things you actually needed. Like those are components to the ecosystem, and an ecosystem is what we're trying to establish for these type of farms. So it's cool how there's like everything being offered, like in the farm world and in the diet world, the supplements, the pesticides, they have unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Um, real quick to go back to talk about fat, the health of fat. Like we have evolved to eat fat from what sources? Animal fat, um, what else? Like avocados, I guess. Basically natural whole foods, right?
Mostly animals. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, what's the percent of our fat that was coming from plant-based sources? Probably extremely low.
Right, yeah. So it's mainly animals. And which restaurants in big cities in America have like only use animal fats to like literally none. Like, dude, when I was in Chicago, I was like trying to find out where to eat. And then I was like searching like crazy on Google, like which restaurant in Chicago, this food capital of the country, has like natural oils. It's like I couldn't find a single one, dude. I typed into Chat GPT, like, please recommend me some restaurants in Chicago that use natural oils such as beef tallow, butter, ghee, like nothing. Like it recommended me five that were trying to head that direction, but nope, they were using seed oils.
Yeah.
So that was kind of frustrating because it's like, dude, this is Chicago, man, and I want to join that scene. I want to go out and I want to like enjoy food outside at restaurants, but it goes against everything I live for. Like, um, so like I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, like this doom and gloom attitude, but it's like, dude, we need more restaurants that use beef tallow as their oil. And the one restaurant I know of that does use it is a 14-hour drive from me. It's in Bluffton, Georgia, White Oak Pastures Farm Restaurant. It's attached to their farm, so
Oh, that's awesome.
like I talked to Jenny Harris, daughter of Will Harris, like 3 weeks ago over video chat, and I was like, "How are you guys able to get beef tallow in your restaurant system? Are there like U.S. regulations preventing restaurants in Chicago and Detroit and New York to use beef tallow?" And she's like, "No, there's nothing prohibiting them. It's like they have very good access to it because it's like on their farm, so it's not a big deal for them to get beef tallow into the restaurant because it's literally right there." But like I guess profit margins and there's a lot of little things that just push restaurants to just use their seed oils and not ask questions and
Yeah.
but seed oils are not natural. Like when I say not natural, I mean they don't align with our evolutionary biology because it's like we got to respect evolution. We got to respect like how our bodies are designed based on the past 200,000 years because that's a long ass time for our DNA to be shifted due to evolution.
Yep.
And it's like it's only the past century we started eating these oils. So that's like a very short window of time where we completely swapped oils. And there's a reason why health issues are on the incline at the same rate as these oils are on the incline of usage. So
I agree completely. Like think about how slow evolution occurs.
very
I
slow.
think
I'm actually studying that right now.
yeah, we large deviations in our lifestyle from our evolution is going to negatively affect us. So it's like it's weird. Like I think we can change, but that's going to take an extreme. That has to happen very, 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 very,
Yeah. And
very.
it's not even happening in the right direction. Like, why would we want to evolve to handle trace amounts of like poison in our foods? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's like we're evolving in the wrong direction as
yeah,
well. It's
yeah.
like if we're gonna evolve, why not evolve in a positive direction and
I
become better?
I don't know how plugged into the like health and wellness scene you are, but I am observing right now, at least in Chicago, a resurgence in health consciousness. Like
Mm.
I'm observing a large movement of people who are getting sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
Seeing a large movement of people who are, let's drink a little less, let's eat a little bit healthier, and let's start moving. Like, I don't know if you've picked up on all the running club craze that's like kind of sweeping
Yeah, I
across.
saw a bunch of people like preparing for marathons and stuff when I was
Like
there.
COVID, I think helped speed that up a bit, but there's a pretty huge wave right now. And actually it makes a lot of sense. So think about what your health allows you to do. Your health gives you if the general population is unhealthy, what does being healthy allow you to do? It allows you to excel because literally, if you just lead a healthy lifestyle, you're going to be above average. You're going to be above average. And why is that? Well, your health, and now that I'm dealing with some, mental issues,
Mhm.
your health, your metabolic health is directly tied to what you can do on this earth. If you do not have energy, it doesn't matter how well you like study how to apply this energy. It doesn't matter how educated you are. If you do not have the energy, you're not going to be able to do anything. You're not going to be able to do things.
Right.
Like it. So I now see health. Health is basically what is the size of your reservoir of energy? And then your consciousness and your psychology, you decide how to spend that energy. But to fill this well, to fill this reservoir, that comes from agreeing with your biology and your evolutionary development. And deviation from that will result in a well which is underfilled.
Yeah.
And your ability to just gonna have less to spend. You're gonna have less to spend. And I
It's
think the more people that, thanks to social media, if you see people who have filled their wells and how they're filling their wells, I think this is why humans are humans are we're some serious creatures.
yeah.
We get shit done. And how do we get shit done? We build on top of the knowledge and progress of the people before us. And how do we do that? We look to others who succeed, we learn from them, and we build on top of them. So I think right now, over the next, it's going to take a while. I think people are smart. Even everybody's like pretty smart.
Yeah.
Humans, Doesn't matter which one you are, you're pretty smart.
Yeah,
You're going
yeah,
to see people who are successful. You're going to see people who are thriving. What are you going to do? You're going to learn from them and you're going to copy them. So
yeah.
I think that it's inevitable. I think it's inevitable. I think
Mhm.
eventually the intelligence of human beings will we will all eventually come to the same conclusion. Eventually, it's going to take a long time, but eventually, I think this regression from evolution will start to correct. We'll return back to our evolutionary design, and it's because
Yeah, I hope so. I'm an
it's
optimist.
beneficial.
Yeah, I'm an optimist, so I think it'll head back to that because the Industrial Revolution had a lot to do with how unhealthy we are right now as a society because everything was about making money, production, profit, and not really caring about like what is the long term here? It's like just make the money.
Yeah.
But like now we're beginning to realize like back to the evolution thing, like how we're evolving. People say like, oh, we'll just evolve to adapt to all this junk and processed foods that we're eating. We don't need to go back to the natural way of doing things because we'll evolve. But like we just said, evolution takes a long time. And also the direction you're gonna evolve is not the right direction. So like for instance, people's jaws and their like mandible bone and everything, there's studies that show that there's deformities occurring in modern societies, children and people where their jaws are not as stronger because everything we put in our mouth is melt in your mouth foods and
That same thing.
dude, like if you want to evolve in that direction, dude, you're gonna end up as like this deformed like human being that can not even walk properly. It's like you're not evolving, you're devolving if you want to head that route. You got to go back to nature because if you eat natural foods, like they tend to be chewier and they work your jaw muscle more. For instance, Five Guys burger. You're probably familiar with Five Guys.
Yeah. Who
Dude,
isn't?
yeah, I used to love eating there, and I do love eating there, and I will want to eat there regularly. The moment they switch out their meat to more chewier patties and stuff, and healthy oils, I'll go right back there. Like it's not the companies I hate; it's like the foods, the supply chain, what they're giving. Like they got the award for number one burger in Michigan. I got a lot to say about that. It's not, you bite into it, it's like I'm eating a cloud. It's like I'm eating it, everything's just so soft but that's the American palate. The American palate craves that, so it got the award. Dude, when I ate a burger at White Oak Pastures, it was the best burger I ever had because you could feel the texture of the patty. It wasn't just like a uniform cloudy softness. It was like you could feel like here's a little bit of texture here, a little bit of collagen in that ground beef. And dude, that burger, I almost cried tears of joy. It was like it was a and you can't find burgers like that unless you make it yourself, which is why I tend to not eat out much these days. I like to make food like yourself. Um,
Well,
but yeah,
ChatGPT may have failed you here. There's a place called Farm Bar up in Lakeview here in Chicago. I
okay,
know that they source their stuff is sourced from local farms. They might even have their own farm, but
okay,
I don't know if that also implies that they're cooking their stuff
yeah,
in good oils. I can't speak to that, but I do
yeah,
know they're pretty well sourced. And I
that's
have had
awesome. Yeah.
back in the day when I was eating burgers, I did have a burger from there, and it was pretty tasty.
Okay. Dude, there's a lot of great food that I want to try. And the best I found was au Cheval. Like I said, like I was just using like quick research on the spot, so you could probably point me in the right direction more. But I went to au Cheval with Kumresh actually, and he had like duck liver, and I had this bone marrow and this other dish, but I wasn't sure if it was grass fed or not, which was like the main thing. But it was still cool. It seemed like it was very well sourced. But at the end of the day, it's like we need to have it to be grass fed and grass finished. Another farm I wanted to recommend to you outside of White Oak Pastures is Seven Sons, and they're in Indiana, and they also will ship right to your address. If you get like a certain amount, you can avoid shipping altogether. And they're legit in terms of, yeah, their cows are outside their whole lives. And dude, the soil health, if it's good, it translates to good plant health. And the plants that are being consumed by the livestock translates to their health. Like the mineral density of these organisms is all connected, and it starts from the soil as the foundation. So you need to have these beneficial bacterial communities and partnerships in the roots of the crops and the plants and mycorrhizal fungi. Like plants can't eat anything from the soil without bacteria and fungi. Like they can't consume anything because their root nodules harbor bacteria that just formed a partnership with that plant, and they convert chemical compounds into edible versions for the plant. So it's like the plant cannot eat anything without these partnerships on their roots with the mycorrhizal fungi as well, because the mycorrhizal fungi will also attach itself to plant roots and just constantly convert ammonia into edible versions for the plant. And that happens over the course of millions of years, these partnerships. So it's like the soil that's dead that I was stepping on that felt like crumbled cement, those bacteria and fungi weren't there. So how was that plant eating? It was eating by having solid nitrogen dumped into the soil. So it was eating that white nitrogen powder. It was not eating this host of other beneficial components that would have otherwise been converted into edible versions by dozens of different species of bacteria. Like it's so complex, bro. You can't just replace it with just nitrogen. Nitrogen will make it grow, but you'll get food that is not nutrient dense and is not mineral dense because it's lacking like all these other components.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
fascinating.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that what you just did, I think that more people need to do that and think really hard about how things work and then think about how deviating from its intended use will actually affect the outcome. I'm
Yeah.
I'm having to do that right now I'm going through and I am reading everything I can find about bipolar disorder. And I'm
Okay.
going to
Yeah.
go back through and understand some of the physiology of this disorder. And once you understand and have a working model, you can then you can then understand how a medication can affect that working model. So just like how you just took nitrogen and you just
Yeah.
understood the symbiotic relationship of plant and bacteria and fungi, I just was doing that with the physiology of bipolar disorder
Hmm.
and how this medication is affecting the physiology. The medication is going to be the nitrogen in your example, and
Okay.
What's
Nice.
the it, yeah, more to talk about there, but
No,
yeah,
that's fascinating.
that thinking, that curiosity, um the root principle thinking, that's missing from a lot of people. That's missing from a lot of people, and it's very
Yeah.
important to apply to everything.
Oh
Like
yeah.
really apply this way of thinking to everything. Like
Exactly.
let's not hand wave. Let's go in and let's understand. Let's actually go in. Let's not pretend like we know. Let's go in and let's answer. How the hell does this work?
Yeah, dude. And that is fascinating because your field of the bipolar studies is actually connected to mine in a very important way with the orthomolecular medicine, as you mentioned. Like you got to eat the best foods possible, and the best foods possible is asking for less, not more. Like people think that I'm asking for like the best food made for kings, and like I'm like a super picky eater. It's like, dude, I'm asking for less stuff. I'm asking for shorter ingredient lists. I'm asking for stuff from nature. I don't want additional input because additional input, like it's also in the best economic interest of the farmer. If nitrogen is bought every harvest to be dumped onto your crops, that's an expense that you would not need to spend that money if you did it the organic permaculture way, because our atmosphere is 70 plus percent nitrogen, and there's plants that convert atmospheric nitrogen into solid state nitrogen. So like we have like all this free nitrogen in the air that plants can literally pull into the soil and turn it into a solid. Why would you need to buy solid nitrogen? Just get those nitrogen fixing plant species, which are
Yeah.
peas, beans, and legumes, intersperse them within your crop rotations. We have like this linear form of thinking, like let's plant 10 by 10 rows of the same crop and then calculate the profit. But it's like that's not how nature works. There's no monocultures in nature. It's always a diversity. So, but it also makes the whole process a lot more fun of being a farmer. Now you're not like this businessman. You're like an ecosystem engineer. You're like a biologist, and it's fascinating to be out there and watch this nature unfold. It's got a lot of mental benefits too, being out there watching this amazing freaking wonder happening in the soil. It's what I love to see. That's what I live for.
You keep making me think about like, okay, the success of the United States really has stemmed from our capital, it kind of has stemmed from our capitalistic thinking and our
Yeah,
ability to have the freedom to go out and make changes in the world. And a lot of good has come from that, but it's come with some consequences. And what you
yeah.
just described is maybe a consequence of capitalism. It is
Oh, it is. Yeah.
farmers, whoever. What are we gonna optimize on? Oh, the bottom line.
Yeah, the bottom line. But
Our
that bottom
favorite
line
color,
is starting
green.
to like we're losing the bottom line here because like I said, you're gonna need to buy more nitrogen fertilizer the next harvest than you did that first year. So your profits are decreasing as the topsoil health disappears every harvest a little bit
Yeah.
more. And then it's like, okay, now the land's not producing anything at all. We're screwed, you know. That's the final destination if you keep going this extractive method of farming. But dude, gosh, I wanted to mention something. A thought popped in my head when you said that. There's a lot of farmers in America that do it the nitrogen where they do it the natural way. Permaculture community is huge in America. A lot of them are in the Pacific Northwest, but it's kind of harder to find them here in the Midwest. We're like part of the Corn Belt. That's where all the capitalistic style farming began. Oh, here's my thought. So Will Harris told me how it all started. This German chemist, I forgot his name, came up with the nitrogen fertilizer, and he brought it to America, and he showed the a young America, he showed like what happens if you dump this on the soil. And it was like magic. We didn't have as deep an understanding of ecology and nature, but this guy just showed like if you pour some of this powder on the soil, watch what happens to that grass or that corn in like 3 days. This wherever he poured it, the plants would like outgrow everything around it like at a crazy pace. And then the farmer's like, give me that.
Yep,
Because
I'll take some.
yeah, so that German chemist he invented the solid state nitrogen fertilizer and he became like a millionaire off of selling that. So it was good for immediate profit because people weren't understanding all the long-term unintended consequences it was having because it creates imbalances. You can't measure how much nitrogen the soil needs. Only systems can measure that. Like only bacterial communities can produce the right amount of nitrogen to where there won't be extra left over. And we don't know how to, it's almost impossible to measure exactly how much nitrogen like you would need to be one of the bacteria in that community to understand, and you'd need to do soil tests like crazy. And it's complicated to do those tests because if you do a test here versus 2 feet away, you might get completely different results. And so it's best to just let nature do its thing instead of try to dump the fertilizer because it could also lead to runoff. Because if you use too much nitrogen fertilizer and you get a heavy rain event, it just washes it all away and it falls into your other bodies of water and causes nitrogen imbalances in there. So it's like just for one little positive, you're creating all these negatives. It's not worth it. It's not worth it at all.
Uh, yeah, that's an interesting
I kind of threw a lot at you there, but it's like each one of those things you can dive into deeper, and my head's still.
yeah, dude, that's very you're opening my eyes in this space. I didn't, you know, until you talk to somebody who like knows enough about things, you
Yeah,
just don't
for me,
have
it's a
enough to pique
topic.
interest. I've never had my interest piqued, but you're kind of piquing my interest here. Like your point
Dude,
about this nitrogen, like yeah, how do you determine the optimal nitrogen levels? I had never thought of that. Like,
it's
yeah,
very hard to determine. That's why like indigenous communities in the past, they weren't determining how much nitrogen to put. They were just they weren't even thinking in that way. They were thinking of like they had a sense for of nature, a deeper connection to nature, indigenous peoples, and they were kind of working with what nature gave them. And yeah, all throughout the world prior to industrial farming, the Neolithic revolution, the way we were farming was per acre way more productive than industrial farming in terms of like per acre. It's just harder to scale because like the next ecosystem over has completely different methods of farming than like you can't apply the same amount of rules, the same set of rules to all the farms because ecosystems are different. Ecology is complex. So what we would need is a bunch of small farmers. Small communities have to like replace the billion-dollar community corporations. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think this topic of farming and ecology, and then what we were talking about earlier with human biology and evolution, I think the answer seems to be the same thing, which is do not deviate too much from evolutionary biology.
Oh
Do
yeah.
not do not deviate. Nature, humans, we might be smart, but we might not be as smart as we think. And
Yeah.
nature and the world might be smarter than us. And if we try to outsmart that, we might get bit. And
Yeah.
it's like what you're talking about with ecology is the same principle as human biology, evolution, and it's the same. It's the same
And it's
principle.
like that is the correct answer. It's not even biased here, you know? So like whenever I'm talking about this stuff, occasionally I'll get a counter argument saying like, well, like people will push back, right? It's like, why, what are we pushing back on? And this is fact. This is not my bias. This is not my opinion. This is based on science. It's like
Yep.
I'm trying to convince people that fire is hot. It's like, why are we arguing for this long? You know, it's like we're talking about facts here. It's just complicated. It's not like 2 + 2 = 4. We're talking
Yeah.
about systems here.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
they're
like,
still facts. Like
yeah,
just because it's complicated doesn't mean they're not facts and doesn't mean they can't be understood. It
yeah.
just means that you haven't spent enough time to understand them.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get better at not talking at people and just kind of talking with people and just creating my work. As a content creator, I want to make that shift because it turns political and I don't want to go in that route. I just love ecosystems. I want to be recording content on various ecosystems, writing scripts and sharing that stuff. I'm working on micro ecosystems right now. I'm into freshwater aquariums. So like I created a fish cycle, I got live plants and I'm trying to create a self-sustaining nitrogen cycle in there. I already have accomplished that, but I'm trying to get it like honed down to where it's like this awesome ecosystem. And then I want to use aquaponics from the fish waste into my garden because aquaponics has got a lot of potential in the permaculture space. And plus, I love ecosystems, wildlife. I've kept a long list of pets as a kid up until like in my early 20s, I began to deviate more toward ecosystems, not just keeping an animal, but like trying to create a system of like, why is this animal under my care? Like I used to have bearded dragons, leopard geckos, but it was kind of like a creature in a box. Now I'm creating like more ecosystems, like using their waste into the plants. It's complicated, but you know,
Cool. That's
it's
very cool.
fascinating. It is fascinating. I
I
could
feel like
study
you're
those.
you're probably learning a ton from doing that. Like you're it's just very hands-on and yeah, that's
Yeah, and I've raised on our property here, we've raised poultry because we're allowed to raise poultry with the amount of land we have. I've learned a ton from raising poultry in our grass here, and we don't use any like chemical fertilizers, so I get to like witness these little baby chickens like exploring their ecosystem, picking at the dandelions and finding insects, fighting over it. Like it's fascinating, like the difference of the life of a chicken that gets to live like that out in nature versus factory farm chicken that they sell at like Chick-fil-A or like McDonald's McChickens is it's so different, dude. Like they live their lives, those factory farm chickens live their lives in a crate. Their feet are on like a crate, and my chicken's feet are on the soil and the grass. And like that's a huge difference, man. And it
I
leads to a different product for sure.
because I haven't found admittedly, I haven't spent that much time trying to find like better sources. Like I've been getting all my meat now from Wild Fork, and I basically just do ruminant animals at this point.
Oh yeah. No.
I, in reading more about chicken, unless I found like a place like if I could buy a chicken from you, I would trust you.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Thanks.
otherwise, I ain't touching chicken with a 10-foot pole. Once
Yeah,
you start to look at it and you start to see what the hell you're talking about, it's obscene. It's
I
obscene. It's like,
know.
I will not touch chicken with a 10-foot pole. And guess what? That makes up the vast majority of the protein that is consumed in the US.
Oh yeah, dude. Especially in the Midwest, like we're a little less health conscious, I feel, than other parts, just because like this is the origin of extractive agriculture in the country. Like that German chemist, he came around like the East Coast to show off the nitrogen fertilizer, and it spread from there. Michigan was one of the spreading points.
Yeah.
Um, but dude, well, sorry, I have like three thoughts right now. I need to organize this better. You can talk about something. You can talk about something to take over.
You were just talking about, oh yeah, this German chemist came over and was sharing some knowledge. That just made me think about, and I don't think that in politics we take this seriously enough.
Yeah,
The United States has not been around for that long. I think that if another country, another powerhouse figures this out, understands. Remember earlier how I was talking about health generates the well of energy that you have to spend? Well, if we remain set in our ways and continue to allow our health to regress in this country, if there is another up and coming power in the world that figures it out and pushes it out into their population, do you want to know what they will do eventually? Because you cannot cheat evolutionary biology. Eventually, their energy will surpass ours. I like this. It sounds crazy, but like literally, if you are not healthy, you are not going to be able to make as much progress as somebody. This is a generalization, but on in general, just think about for yourself when you are sick versus when you are healthy,
yeah.
how much are you able to achieve?
Oh
That
yeah,
is what we're that
definitely.
is what we're talking, and I don't see there's not nearly enough talk about this in
Yeah,
politics. Like that true health that does not come up in politics. And I see it as a very, very important and serious issue because it is.
yeah.
Because it because that affects our ability to be sustainable and grow and achieve the things that America has historically been able to achieve. And that's like it sounds kind of
Yeah,
nationalistic. That's greatness. Like, where
yeah,
have we been able to move the fucking needle? We've been able to move the fucking needle in more areas quicker than any other country on earth. Why? And why is that maybe going to start to slow down? I would guess that we could be surpassed if, and this, like, I think we should think broader. It shouldn't be, our countries shouldn't be in competition, but they kind of are. Like
yeah,
we're a player in a space.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it is a competition. Um, we should probably think more broadly, and we
yeah.
should all be trying to. It's not just us; it's all of us together. I just watched. You ever seen the movie A Beautiful Mind?
No, but I will put that in my notes.
It's about this. Was he a mathematician? I think technically, I don't know what his formal background was, but a guy named John Nash, who ends up winning the Nobel Prize, comes up with this theory or this is a theory. I don't know the precise term, but the Nash equilibrium. It's basically that if I think about myself and myself alone, and other people are thinking about themselves and their selves alone, we will achieve a suboptimal outcome.
Yeah.
But instead, what should I do? I should think about myself, and I should think about myself in the context of others. That that is what we have to do. And I think that's yeah, that's and maybe we're already doing that. Like
Yeah.
all these countries are kind of already doing that, right? You can't just go fuck up another country and ruin trade because you need them. You need the interflow of goods and services.
Oh yeah. And
So
I think
it is already
hopefully,
occurring. But I
yeah,
think we need to think about our health for the stability and the growth of the United States. And we also need to think about the health of the world in general, because the trend that we're on is, we were making a lot of progress in a lot of areas. I'm an engineer. Like, yeah, there's a lot of really, really cool things happening in the world of technology.
Wait,
But
where do you work at as an engineer?
I was working at a company called IMC. I just left
Okay.
about a month ago.
What kind of engineer are you?
Software engineer.
Okay, okay. That's cool. I did a BS in computer science.
Okay, yeah.
The grad degree I'm doing is biology, completely unrelated. But
Yeah, dude.
three, yeah, 3 years into my BS degree in computer science, I wanted to change my major. But everybody, all my friends and family were telling me to just push through, get the degree, and maybe you can get another degree after. But yeah, basically I was too deep in to change. I already put in 3.5 years worth of comp sci semesters, but it's cool. Like I have a lot of friends that are software engineers, and I think it's fascinating what's happening in that field with AI and everything.
I think the comp sci thinking actually is very, very, very applicable to biology, very applicable to physiology.
Oh yeah.
They're extremely similar. Like comp sci, and actually this is also maybe more applicable to once you get out into a workplace and we're working on complex systems, software, computer science, it is a massive system of desperate parts who have a complicated interplay and interaction with one another. What is biology? What is physiology? What were you explaining in ecology?
Yeah.
Is a lot of independent actors who have complex relationships with one another. Like
Yeah.
that systems thinking in engineering, that is the exact same systems thinking. At least that's how I see it in biology, probably ecology, physiology. Like it's all the same. It's like here are the dots, here are the players, here are the pieces, and here's how they interact, and here's how
Yeah.
they fit together. Like
And the
let's just
health,
figure it out.
yeah, and the health of the system is what needs to be prioritized. The system itself can become more efficient. But dude, speaking on like having more energy throughout the day, if you have a healthier diet, reminded me of what Ryan Holiday said on the Joe Rogan podcast. Do you know Ryan Holiday?
No, is he an MMA guy?
No, Ryan Holiday's an author. He wrote books based on Greek Stoicism, and Ryan Holiday wrote a lot of books like The Daily Stoic, but it's a
Oh,
bestseller.
yep.
Yeah. He's got a YouTube channel and everything, but he goes on podcasts. And the one on Joe Rogan, I watched it when I was younger, but that one stuck with me because he mentioned a lot of good things in that one. But he mentioned about how we wake up every day with like 100 energy points, and it's up to us how we spend those energy points on what we spend that energy on, and then we wake up the next day with a refilled capsule of 100 energy points. So he's like, I don't let a single energy point go in a direction that's not like beneficial to me. But what you said about health made me think like that cap of 100 energy points can be increased to 120 if you're healthier. And
Yep.
if you're unhealthy, you could have a total cap of 30 energy points. If you're
Yep.
like a heavy smoker, drinker, and you eat like shit, you're not going to have the same amount of energy points that every other person, the average person has. So you're at a great disadvantage there. And it's like,
Ener- Energy, ATP, that's the currency of life. That is literally the currency of life.
yeah,
Without energy, you're dead. You're literally dead.
yeah, dude. And like, the shift of like the food system in particular, the shift needed, like I told you, is like a bunch of small farmers that know their ecosystem like the back of their hand because each ecosystem is different. So what we need to do is have a bunch of small farmers, community. The power has to go to the communities away from like because it's like weird, like 90% of all wealth belongs to like a small percentage of like companies and people. That got to change to spread out a little bit more for this ecological farming to be scaled. But what's good is that it's being scaled right now. Like there's more demand for organic natural food now than ever before. And these small farmers are popping up. all throughout the country. There's a bunch actually popping up in Michigan. I'm talking about really small farmers, 40 acres, 30 acres, 5 acres. Um, and another good thing is corporate workers stuck in that 9 to 5 grind, they're seeking alternatives. They're looking for more fulfilling jobs. Like not everybody wants to work in an office, but they still want to make money. Like what if there was a job around here to be like a horticulturalist or like a gardener or like, yeah, your job is to literally uproot carrots and radishes, wash them, hand them over, and you're getting paid for that. Like that's so fulfilling. You're not in a cubicle. You're outside, you know? Like I would love to work as a cattleman. If that job was around here, I would like to just be on a horse and move cattle. That job is not like there's not many of those jobs available at all, but there can be, you
Dude,
know.
I think I could see a world over the next, 20, 30 years where that does become more of a thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe technology eliminates some of this stuff, which is unfortunate, but I could see like I don't know this, but homesteads, like um yeah, just a community where people come together to live in a more nature-based, evolutionarily appropriate
Yeah.
style. I could see that becoming more and more of a thing. Like you
Yeah.
don't actually need you don't need that much for survival and for happiness. You
Yeah.
don't actually need all of this noise that we have in modern society. Like I think our the amount that you need to sustain like a happy, healthy life, like we've just been building and building and building and building because we're humans. That's what we do, that
Yeah.
we're really good at it. But you don't actually need all this extra stuff. Like it's nice, but it's kind of noise. Like you could go back, you could totally go back, and it's very cheap and
Yeah.
sustainable to do.
And that doesn't mean we have to stop advancing either. Some people think I mean like we got to stop advancing in the fields of AI and aerospace and dude, we could continue advancing in those fields while living with nature. Like
Yeah,
imagine a utopian world where there's like insane technology mixed with plants everywhere and chickens and like dude, that's a future I'd want rather
yeah.
than the
I
future. Yeah.
I think you're like, yeah, we've kind of hit this point where our intelligence has allowed us to move more quickly than the process of evolution.
Yeah.
Our our intelligence has allowed us to create at a rate which is outpacing evolution. So now we're in this scenario where we are going against our evolution. I think we talked about this. I think we're going to course correct and we're going to realize like, hey, we need to go back to at least in these, we're going to start to understand here's actually the variables that are tied to our evolution. Here are the
Mhm.
variables that we cannot deviate from too quickly. Like, dude, there's smart people on this earth. They're going to figure this out. We're going to be able to say, here's how quickly these variables do change. So, in terms of change, here's what we can do, but here's what we cannot do. So,
Yeah.
let's get that figured out. And then, once we get that figured out, we can go do what humans are really good at.
Right.
We
With like
can
a proper
go,
health. Yeah.
technology will continue to advance. Like, we will push so many areas and like, but we will have to stay tied to and remember and know and measure our evolutionary biology. And that's how that's how, like, that, I think that's how we progress, right? Like, you need
Yeah.
to know this because this is core to our survival.
Yeah.
Deviations are causing us some issues. But
Oh,
then we should go out. Yeah, we should be like doing what Elon Musk tried. We should be trying to go to other planets. We should be pushing the boundary of what is possible. Like within reason, we should be
yeah.
careful. We should try to not put ourselves out of into extinction, like through, some disaster AI event, through destruction of all of and usage of all of our resources in an unsustainable way, like that will kill all of us. So we got
Yeah.
to be smart about it. But like, yeah, that's how you,
Yeah.
I
The
think that's why
society.
we exist.
Yeah, Brand. Society, at least in modern society, like the Western world, really prioritizes intellect. And because intelligence is not just intellect. Intellect is one dimension of intelligence. There's like 16 dimensions of intelligence. It's hard to define intelligence. So it's like this society only rewards intellectual thinking. But the other 15 dimensions, I can't name them right now. I just learned this yesterday off a video I watched by Sadhguru. He's really wise, that guy. But yeah, intellect alone is not intelligence. That's one dimension of intelligence. But that's all we kind of promote in this society. I know I was promoted that way. I grew up in America. Like everything was about GPA and like that type of thinking.
So
Artists, yeah.
it's really funny that you mentioned this because literally earlier last week, I was also thinking about this. What is intelligence? And I admittedly didn't go very deep. I just said, "Hey Google, what's intelligence?" And what did Google respond? Google said, "Intelligence is the ability to learn new information." And previously my that would have been, oh wait, here's, do you hear it? The capacity for abstraction, logic, understanding, self-awareness, learning, emotional knowledge, reasoning. Okay, so its answer today is different than its answer last week.
But I agree with what it
I think
just
it's,
said,
I think
yeah.
it's giving a longer answer, but I kind of liked its answer last week. I also agree with what it just said.
Yeah, yeah.
The answer last week was it's the ability to synthesize new information and very importantly, and act on that information. So it's learning and acting and action.
Mhm.
So without action, knowledge is useless. It's useless. If it doesn't influence how you interact with the world, that knowledge is not intelligence. So
Mhm.
that, and I liked that. That kind of spoke to me. It was like, okay, you need to learn
Knowledge is not intelligence. Yeah, I agree.
and you need to act.
Yeah, dude. One last little top. I don't know how much time you got. I got one last thing I wanted to cover, which was organ meats and like the nutritional composition of organ meats. Like I have organs in my freezer at all times. I eat like a little bit once or twice a week. But dude, ever since I watched the movie Dances with Wolves, I don't know if you watched that movie.
I haven't
Um,
seen it, no.
with Kevin Costner, that's one of my favorite movies. But at one point, they killed a bison, the Lakotas, and he offered the protagonist, I forgot the character's name, but it was played by Kevin Costner. He was an English settler, American soldier, and he wanted to experience life living with the indigenous people. So he left his white friends and family to join the Lakotas, and he lived with them. And so they killed a bison and they cut the bison open and they're like sectioning it off and doing what they do after they kill a bison. So like one of the Lakota uh tribe people, the warriors, he cut the liver or the heart out and he just held it up like this precious like thing and he just took a bite out of it raw and he offered it to Kevin Costner and he was like, no, 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 it's fine. He's like, no, try it. You have to try it. This is like the best thing. And ever since then, it got me into like this rabbit hole of learning about like organs, like why did the Lakotas value the heart over like the meat? And then I found out the meat of an animal is the least nutritious part of the animal. And now I'm all about nose to tail animal eating because that's part of our biology. We never just ate like the legs and the ribs and like left everything. We ate every part of the animal throughout our history, except minus the literally the poop and pee. We ate everything and each part of the animal has its own set of nutrients. Like, dude, it's so cool. Like liver has like 90 different components, and almost all of them can't be found in the entire plant community. And it's
Yeah.
like can't be found anywhere else actually in the right bioavailable form than in liver. And I eat liver like once a week, twice a week, like this much amount. I have it frozen and diced up to where I can thaw it out. And I actually developed a taste for it. Like the first time I put raw liver in my mouth, I was like instant gag reflex. I was like, holy shit, this is going to be hard to get down. But I made like little improvements. I put a little bit of salt, a little bit of maple syrup to ease the process of swallowing it. Now, dude, I don't even put that stuff. Like after eating it once or twice a week for like months, my palate has understood the complexity of flavor in liver. because your palate is not a fixed thing. It can change.
Yeah.
And
You do raw from frozen?
yeah, so I buy it frozen and then I let it thaw partially and then I cut it up into small pieces and I throw it back in the freezer before it can fully thaw out. And then whenever I want, I just get some of those frozen pieces out, thaw just those pieces out completely and eat it at like
Yep.
room temperature. Yeah.
That's that. So I tried that. I've only tried this once. But it was the so I chopped it up and then I refroze and everything kind of stuck together. So I needed to space things out. But I was trying that as well. And
Well, trial and error. Yeah.
I saw that from Paul Saladino.
Yeah, he got into it too.
I admittedly haven't spent enough time understanding all of the literature on organ meat and right, like what is the appropriate dosage. I think probably based on what I've seen, I agree with yours. It's like, okay, once or twice a week, like, and think about again aligning with evolutionary biology.
Mhm.
How often would you have liver available to you? Was it
Right.
every single day? Probably not. When you killed an animal, what percent of that animal is liver versus everything else? Pretty small percent. So
Yeah.
what should we
You don't
be
need a whole
eating?
lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah, what should we be eating? Probably proportional to the animal.
Yeah. Dude, and I'm about to try beef kidneys for the first time in my life. Like I'm just one by one trying these organs. It's like a whole nother world of the animal that I was never exposed to because they don't sell them as
Yeah.
frequently. And they
Yeah.
don't sell them from grass-fed sources. Dude, a grass-fed liver tastes way better than a factory farmed liver. It's like I put a factory farmed liver once in my mouth and it tasted way worse. Like I just bought like the cheapest liver I could find at any old store and now I really source my organs. Like I will not eat organs unless I know the farmers and I know that they're raising their animals in nature.
Hey, I
Because
gotta, I gotta, I gotta up my game and try and find some good locally sourced stuff because I've been buying my liver from Wild Fork, and it's
dude,
not even.
I can recommend a bunch to you. Seven Sons is the closest to us in terms of like, dude, they're huge. They're like you can compare them to White Oak Pastures and yeah, like I'm about to make a big order from them soon because I'm running low on meat.
Yeah.
Seven Sons. I
I
already
wish
see.
I I
Yeah.
wish I had a big chest freezer. Do you have a big chest freezer?
What is a chest freezer?
Like one that sits flat on the ground and opens up. It's just like a
Oh.
massive freezer.
I have one on the ground, but I pull it out.
Okay. And it's
Yeah.
still, I think that's still technically a chest, but really I was just mainly referring to the size.
Oh,
Usually
okay,
these
gotcha.
freezers are
Yeah.
massive. You could put a whole body in there basically.
Wow. Yeah, dude. I mean, but like I usually make like big orders to bypass shipping costs, and then that will last me like 4 or 6 months, like that order of meats, because like I don't have a heavy meat diet like you. You might need like a bigger freezer because you have such a high percentage of your diet is meat. Like I still eat like carbs and stuff, but lower than usual. That's what helped me lose like 52 pounds. I was 52 pounds heavier than I am right now. I was stuck in the cycle of like just your taste buds will fixate on certain tastes and stuff. Like I had a sweet tooth and I was also eating out more, way more. And now, ever since I lost this weight, dude, organ meats have helped me lose the weight. Doing 24-hour fasts have helped a lot. I did like a bunch of 24-hour water fasting this summer. Dude, that shit was amazing. Like when I'm 22 hours deep in without eating any food, your body gets into this state of you just feel kind of high. It's just like you have so much energy and you have no idea where it's coming from, but it's coming from your body fat. Like your body fat is being your main energy source. And like, dude, I could run, I could lift, I could read books. Like there's that spurt of like, I'm just so energetic, like at 22 hours in.
Yep.
And I also get like my best creative thoughts at that time. It's like a whole different mode.
If you really want to look into that, you should look into ketones. You
Okay.
should,
I
if
read
you
it briefly
experience,
about them.
if you experience that type of mental, like noticeable cognitive increase,
Mental clarity as well.
then it's probably worth your time to, in that state, you can buy a ketone monitor. It's called a keto mojo. There's keto or ketone strips and glucose strips. It's like $50 on Amazon. Um,
Okay.
just going back to the well uh, principle. Here's another thing people underappreciate. So you just said that using no exogenous substance, using
Not,
no
yeah.
exogenous substance,
Yeah.
you were able to experience an increased cognitive ability. How were you able to achieve that? I would posit, I would posit that you were able to achieve that probably because you were in a state of ketosis.
I would agree. Yeah.
And that's why I would, just like how you questioned all of your eating because you were able to experience, okay, I know how I felt before when I was eating a certain way. Then I made these changes and I can see how I felt as a result. What most people who haven't done a ketogenic diet have not experienced since they were probably 6 months to a year old is a state of ketosis. Now, if you've fasted, if you've gone prolonged periods with low carbohydrates, you will have entered this state. However, what percent of the population do you know that have been in that state? It's a pretty low amount, very,
Very low.
very, very low amount. And what I'll tell you based on my personal experience is going into that state for some people, you won't even know this until you try it. For some people, going off of ketones might give them a go back to the well. That might give you, in terms of your cognition, that might give you a larger reserve of energy to pull from. And all of a sudden, you're going to be very, very surprised. And most people have never tried. So until you try, like I think you need to be your own experiment. Just
Yeah.
try these things because what you might observe might shock you. And until you put yourself through that state, you will have no idea. You'll have no idea.
Yeah.
So everybody's like hand wavy, dismissive of some of this nutritional stuff. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
keto, I think I'm unique because I'm experiencing something that has forced me to do this. Basically, I don't have a
Mhm.
choice. Um, so my perspective is a little bit different, but I know from my experience that I'm in a class of people where, hey, if you do keto and not just do keto, like you need to measure your ketones,
Yeah.
you may experience something that will change your life. Like it will change your life.
Yeah. And you got to do it with a sense of curiosity. It's not like a quick fix. Like do keto, your problems are all solved. More so like learn about your body with keto and just get curious about it. And yeah,
Yeah.
because your body's like unique.
Yeah.
You gotta use it, like you said, as your own experiment.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. Curiosity. That's the piece that's missing. Like you need
Yeah.
to be curious and you also need to be a skeptic. Like, and
Yeah.
those two I think kind of go hand in hand. Like you,
Curiosity is not promoted in society. It's all like you're like with the wave of what everybody else is doing. You're pushed to
yeah,
just yeah. But dude,
all of
another
those.
thing about like the 26 hour fasts that I did, I was at like a negative 3,500 calorie deficit on those days because I was also working out, not intense workouts, more so prolonged calorie burning workouts. Because Thomas DeLauer on YouTube. He was my main guy who
Yep.
I was going for information on how to do this safely. Um, yeah, dude. One thing about doing those prolonged fasts is you become very meticulous with what you put in your body after that period of 24 hours have passed. You're probably not going to reach for junk food because you're so deprived. Whatever you put in your body, you want that to be fuel. You want it to be healthy. So that has also helped with me being way more disciplined with what I eat because like I'm not going to reach for a donut after 25 hours. Like I know that's going to be complete shit for my body at that point where it's like just ready to take something in and fully use it. I don't want it to use what a donut has. I want it to use what organs have. Like that's the most nutrient dense meat on our planet, liver. And so I'll eat like liver, meat, fruits as the first few things that I put in my body, and I'll just take a break. I won't like gorge myself because I've made that mistake before after not eating for 24 hours. I eat too much and it just stretches your stomach, a lot of bad stuff with that. The Japanese have a saying for eating until you're only 80% full, hara
Yeah.
hachibu. So it's like I've mastered that. Like, because I'm the type of guy that gains weight fast. Like, I'm at risk of being fat because I like food. I have a sweet tooth. So I had to really fight those weaknesses of mine these past 6 months. And I'm glad to say I've mastered the 80% rule. Like I don't like being 100% full. It feels like I can barely stand and I don't like that feeling. I like it to where I feel fueled, like I'm ready to move and do things, you
Yeah.
know? That's 80% for me. And I agree with what the Japanese have figured it out, bro. 80% is that's optimal. That's for optimal health. If you're never eating to 100%, it's good to do that. Bunch of reasons, bunch of science behind that. But dude, just doing these prolonged fasts have helped me really hone in on what's healthy and only eat those things because I'm only viewing food as fuel when I do that because I'm like doing it for the whole reason I'm not eating is for my health. So it's like, why would I just negate all that work I did by now eating unhealthy foods? So my plate is just eating a plate of discipline. Like there's nothing bad for me when I eat my one meal a day on those days. And my sweet tooth is covered by raw honey because you're gonna want to have to eat something sweet. So, dude, fruits taste like candy at the end of the day when you haven't eaten for 24 hours. It's like a euphoric experience biting into a peach or whatever. Whatever fruit I have, dude, it's not the same as eating it when you're not that hungry. It's like it's almost psychedelic. Like when I bit into that peach, I was like, dude, I feel like I'm in the Avatar movie right now where he bit into the fruit in the first movie. Food is underrated, man. We take it for granted because we're in a world surrounded by food everywhere we go, but it wasn't always like that. We had to work for it. We had to work to acquire it. And that's kind of what I through my self-imposed limitations I put myself through. But yeah, fasting combined with nutrient-dense foods has helped me lose 52 pounds. Organ meats were the big part of it. Dude, another thing about liver, people think liver has impurities because the liver is supposed to filter out impurities in the organism. But it doesn't accumulate impurities. It doesn't like hold on to them. It like separates the impurities and sends it off. It's like the transporter. So you're eating the transporter, you're not eating the impurities. You're eating the transporter machine itself. So like it's fascinating, dude. Like the liver, the more I learn about the liver, the more it's just like, holy shit, this is amazing, you know?
So I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
The liver is an extremely complicated, going back to the wonder of human physiology, the brain is up there, the liver, the more I understand it, I'm going to put liver as number two in terms of the most interesting organ. Like
Yeah.
it is insane. It's insane.
Dude, and when I was at Kumresh's, which is this spot you're in, when I was there, Kumresh was showing me, he opened the fridge and he showed me like this huge steak you had on a rack. I
Oh
was I
yeah.
was wondering what you were doing there. Did you like season it with salt and just letting it kind of marinate in there or what?
Yeah, just dry brining.
Oh,
It
dry brining. Okay.
takes some of the moisture out of the meat and locks the moisture into like the center of the meat.
I gotta try that.
When you go to a restaurant and they have like dry aged beef,
Yeah.
that's effectively what I was doing. The process I was following in the fridge wasn't as it's not as thorough and I don't do it for as long, but it does alter the texture and the flavor of the meat. It is a bit higher of a it just requires more work. So I don't do it all the time. I haven't done it in the last little bit. Again, these air fried, like the air fried frozen steaks,
Yeah.
That's just such a time saver. There's no
Oh yeah,
prep
I gotta
really.
try that. Yeah.
So I mainly only dry brine and age. I'll say dry age. It's like not technically dry aging, but it still is. I'll let meats sit in there for like I think the longest I've done is like 2 weeks. Two,
Wow. Yeah,
yeah.
that's dude, a lot of restaurants do that to cure their meats. Because I'm interested in that. You could teach me a lot about that because I kind of stick to the same thing in terms of preparing it. Salt, pepper, whatever else, cast iron with beef tallow.
Yeah.
So like I need to learn more about dry aging and preserving, like creating that outer layer of dryness to contain the moisture. There's so much you can do with cooking it because I actually love cooking. Like I told you, I love food. I was obese at one point because I like to make food and I appreciate food, but now I'm doing it to where I'm doing it all healthily to where I have energy and I got no guilt whatsoever about what I'm eating, you know?
Yeah, you can play around with it. That process is very simple. Literally just take a cookie sheet, put a drying rack on top of it. Do you know Anthony Chafee?
No.
He's a YouTuber, carnivore guy. I
Okay.
took some inspiration from him. He does this as well. Just salt the shit out of your meat, toss it on the dry rack.
Okay.
Don't let the meat touch because that will allow moisture, and moisture promotes the growth of bacteria. So you
Okay.
want to make sure it's separated, and you do this to dry it out, basically.
Gotcha. See, what I do is like I put saran wrap over it because I have the mentality like I need the juices, but I got to try that other way out because I watched the show called Life Below Zero on Disney Plus. It's like Alaskan survivors, basically. Not survivors, but they're living in very remote areas. And this one guy, he dries his moose meat whenever he gets a moose, he just hangs it. That's it. And it creates that outer dry layer and it's preserved for like a very long time. No refrigerator. He's just hanging it.
I haven't bought a dehydrator yet, but I think that's going to be the next thing that I do. Actually,
Yeah.
before that, I just bought an instant pot. I need to do you do bone broth at all?
I love bone broth. It's hard for me to access it, find it, but my parents are Bangladeshi, so when they prepare like beef curry, they use like small cut up pieces, and there's like bone often, and you can find bone broth in those little pieces, dude. It's like, yeah, bone broth is amazing.
Yeah, I have some in my freezer right now. I haven't prepped it yet. I haven't made bone broth yet, but I have some beef bones with bone marrow you can get from Wild Fork. It's pretty
Okay,
cheap. I think I have
okay,
like 5 pounds, and I'll literally just do it in the instant pot. I need to experiment that, but that's the next thing that I'm gonna look
bone
at.
broth, yeah, dude. It's got so much. It's got calcium in there. Do you know we don't really need that much dairy from cows? We actually need it's not bad to drink it, but we don't need nearly as much dairy as we like. Our calcium requirements are not as high as the nutritional labels put it at. And
Yeah.
plus, the people that make nutrition labels for food in America is the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration. There's corruption there. That's
Dude,
all
these
I
guys,
got.
government is filled with incompetence. Like there are some smart people in there, don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
but in general, I'm gonna go figure my own shit out. Like,
yeah.
yeah, there's FDA, you probably have already done the research. Like, okay, food pyramid, dude, at the bottom of the food pyramid was what, 8, 11 servings of carbohydrates. Up over here is our like animal products, like meat. And we've got the base of our diet. They want the base of our diet to be refined carbohydrates. Like that,
Basically sugar.
what?
It's basically sugar, right? Because it
Basically,
gets
sugar. Yeah.
converted.
But to be fair, they did have, sugar at the top, like, oh yeah, keep this in moderation.
Oh
But
yeah, try to
at the
see
bottom, at the bottom, you've still got sugar. Like you still got a type of sugar. Like
as
what
the
are you,
foundation. Yeah.
yeah. So that's like those are some of the guidelines that have come from the FDA. And people like to think that like these people in a place of authority, surely they must know. People are like, "Oh yeah,
That's how I thought. Yeah.
surely they must know, like they're in a place of authority." Well, if you actually start to look at it, and understand the history, you'll start to realize actually, you know what? They get things wrong. And in fact, we've been getting things wrong for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
Like there's another book I was reading recently. It's talking more about some of the things that we used to promote in the US for health and different reasons is insane. So we
Yeah.
used to peddle amphetamines to promote weight loss. So literally, housewives were taking amphetamines for a time for weight loss. We used to, I don't know all the history of Coke, but there's so many instances where we just did some seriously stupid things.
Yeah, they're
So
all money motivated, I feel.
if all of these stupid things, and now that we have the hindsight of 2020, we can look back and say, hey, this was incredibly stupid. If we can look back in history and say at each period, this was stupid, why do you think that that won't also apply to today? Today, in 20 years, we will look back at some of the things we're doing today and we will go, that is stupid. So those things, they exist. They exist in the world. We just don't have the hindsight yet. And that's what I think people don't understand is we all think, oh yeah, like we've got it all figured out. And we don't. We
Yeah.
don't. We don't. That's why that's what we're in. That's what why we exist. We exist to figure that shit out and improve. We have not figured it out. We haven't figured it all out.
Yeah, dude, I agree. Dude, this has been a very great podcast. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about how I was in East Africa. This summer I was in East Africa with Miami University as part of my degree. We got to do an expedition every year, and I'm just gonna share a moment from this trip. We were with the Maasai. Like this thing on my wrist was made by the Maasai for me because that's the women the children, the female children of the little girls' first form of income is beading. So they'll bead and sell whatever they bead. So we did a beading session with them. It was a magical trip overall, but I will tell you, I want to tell you, I tried some of their cattle milk, unheated, away from the view of my professors, because they clearly told me, Sadat, you better not drink any of that, because they just didn't want to be held liable if anything happened. But dude, I had a whole mug of that milk, and this is, by the way, the best milk in the world, because the diet of those cows is different grass species of the African ecosystem. It's like as good as it gets. And dude, it was the best milk ever. It was they put it in a very well cleaned gourd, clay gourd with ash tree as preservative and nothing else. So they didn't heat it. And I had like a full mug of it. And dude, just like telling you how I felt afterward, my gut felt great. I never really had gut problems, but after I drank that, I felt even better and more energetic. And I definitely sensed like this was good for me, you know? Like we said, like nutritional labels, they are the authority, right? But at the end of the day, we got to like ask ourselves, how do we feel after we eat something? Because that's the actual effect it's having. And dude, that Maasai milk was amazing. I camped out in Africa. We were in tents. 3:30 a.m. You would hear a clan of hyenas moving through the campsite. You would hear baboons at night. There were lions about. It was the most intense camping I've ever done, dude. Distant lion roars, the sky filled with stars. Like I miss it. I was never scared of these creatures because we were doing everything safely, but just the thought of being out, I love immersing myself in ecosystems. I've been to the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, ecosystems that are just the way they were before we took species out. I love to visit those places. I've been to Alaska. And I want to make videos where I'm with tribes and I'm like with how they acquire food. Like that's something I really want to create a series on. Obviously, it's going to require some money on travel and everything, so I got to figure out how to get views before I do that. But the Maasai are ready to have me back whenever I want. Like next summer, they're like, you can, if you come, we're going to show you everything, man. We're going to show you how we slaughter a cow, process it, every part of the cow, the different ways we use it. They have the tradition called Orpul, which is the men do this. They take a cow out into the African bush and they eat the entire cow over the course of a few months. And they come back and they feel like this is for revitalization. That makes them stronger. So they said I could join in on that. Just camp out, no tents, by the way. This is Orpool. This is like you just sleep under a tree in the African ecosystem, but it's with like 20 guys, 10, 20 guys with spears. So lions and stuff will not approach you unless you're alone. Yeah.
Awesome.
Dude,
That's
yeah, so that's the stuff I live for.
I,
Ecosystems and people that know how to live with ecosystems. There's nothing I'm more fascinated by than that, I would say. So I'm trying
that
to
sounds.
narrow down my focus though, because it's a little bit all over the place right now, my videos. But as I make more videos, I'm narrowing down my passion, and I'm coming to find that it's food from nature. That's my passion,
I'm
because
having I'm having I'm having a similar problem right now. It's like, yeah, you're just fired up about a lot of things, and it's
yeah,
like sometimes to move the needle, you got to just focus in on one. But it's hard when you're getting like excited about
yeah.
all these other things.
And you can actually have multiple interests. It's just a matter of like making like a story out of it to share it. And then people actually like to watch whatever you got that you're producing. Like yeah, I'm getting better at being a video maker as well to the storytelling aspect of it. Like it's really not about the camera quality or the audio quality. Once you got the basics, it's about like can you tell a story, you know? And by the way, your kitchen, when I saw it, I told Kumresh multiple times, like this is a great YouTube angle. You got a great YouTube kitchen. So
I'll
if you
definitely.
do, yeah, if you do end up posting videos of how you prepare those meats or anything, like you got the kitchen. I mean, you need like just angles and the lighting and everything. I was like, holy crap, this is a good situation for a YouTube channel.
I definitely would like to put more stuff out there. Yeah, something I need to spend more time doing is being intentional about media. Like that's going to be something that I'm also trying to learn and grow because that is how you move the needle in some way.
Yeah,
Like unfortunately, you do need to get your message out there. Like for you to make a big impact, you need a wide audience.
yeah,
And I think that that's something that I'm also going to be spending time on. I've just been distracted by so many. There's
yeah.
just
One thing at a time.
something at a time. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
just so many things to do. So many things to do.
I've often fell into that boat of trying to do too many things at once, and that's just a recipe for chaos in your mind and can lead to depression. Too many projects can lead to depression because you're not able to make each project with your full effort. So it seems like you suck at everything. It seems like you suck at all the projects. You're just spreading yourself too thin. So it's like I've been there. I catch myself when I see myself going there. It's like, okay, we can't do that right now. Maybe after. And then I can put my full effort and energy into creating this one video or this one article. I love to write. Like I love reading to the point where I gotta write now because I read so much. Like I can't just keep consuming. I gotta produce. And
Something
I've
out there.
self-published a book. It's on like all my videos have a link to the Amazon link for it. It's about North American animal species and ecology of like the Canadian ecological biome, boreal forest biome. That's probably one of my favorite ecosystems just because of Hatchet and the book Hatchet and growing up in Michigan, it's kind of part of that. So, but yeah, dude, this conversation has been it flew by. It's 1 p.m. already.
It did literally flew by. Well,
Yeah.
it was a pleasure. And if yeah, it'd be nice to connect on some other stuff in the future.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for some good foods, I'm definitely going to keep the farms that you recommended in mind. So Seven Sons, White Oak,
Yeah.
and yeah, it would be we should stay in touch, collaborate again in the future. I think that would
Yeah,
be fun.
future podcasts even where we can focus on one of the many things we covered here because we kind of touched base on like just skimmed the surface of a lot of topics here. And obviously, we can dive deeper into each one. And dude, yeah, your field is so connected to my field, and it's cool to learn about the different psychological, I don't know what you call it. What do you call bipolar disorder? Disorders? Yeah.
Order.
Okay. Yeah, and like how food helps with that is just that's so cool.
I could talk about that for hours,
Yeah.
and maybe we will in the future.
Yeah, dude. And if you ever get into making videos, and I did want to recommend you one podcast if you want to get into that world of social media, using social media as a tool because it can be so distracting. this one podcast that helped me so much was Mr. Beast on Joe Rogan. Like listening to this guy, Jimmy Donaldson, talk about social media for however long that podcast was, it totally changed how I view social media. Like social media is a double-edged sword. You can cut yourself with a knife or you can use a knife, basically. And you have to like separate people's opinions and stuff away from like using it as a tool.
Yeah.
And dude, he does that. Like just listening to that conversation changed how I view social media. Like I don't have Instagram on my phone. I don't even have Twitter or X. I don't use like social media for the purpose that 99% of the population uses it. I just go on YouTube mainly and I stick to my niche, like videos that I'm super interested in. And I consciously make the decision to press play on a video. I use the watch later feature a lot. So I'll like backlog videos and then I'll be like, okay, I got some free time. I can watch this video now that I've been meaning to watch. Like I never doom scroll. I never let the algorithm decide what I'm gonna watch because that's when it can get dangerous.
Yeah.
That podcast helped me realize all that shit because he figured it out. Mr. Beast figured it out.
So who was that guy? Was it Ryan Holiday, you said, the Daily Stoic?
Yeah, Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday. He was also on JRE. I think he was only on there once.
So you're also applying exactly what he said, which is you need to be careful about how you spend your energy because you've only got so much of it. So yeah, you've just decided that, hey, I'm gonna spend my energy wisely. And I'm
Hey,
not, hey, big tech companies, you don't get this. I get to go spend this on things that matter to me. Like I think that's
right.
really
Yeah, dude, and it's just a patience game. Like I'm very close to making my first money income on YouTube. I haven't gone into the partner program yet. I've been very close, but then I get into this cycle of like what's going to get views.
Yep.
But like it's a fine balance there. Like you got to also be making the video not for the views in order to get the views. It's so tricky. So it's like I've learned through trial and error past 2 years of making videos and I'm getting better at it. Hopefully, some of the videos I got lined up. I'm about to post a video of me eating raw beef testicles, and that's got virality potential for sure if I execute on it. Dude, do you know beef testicles are prohibited for athletes in like professional sports leagues to consume
I've
because
heard
of
this before.
it-
Yeah.
that's nuts because it's not like steroids where you're injecting steroids. It's a there's a lot of side effects. There's no side effects to consuming two raw beef testicles. That's like a natural amount of that testosterone. You're ingesting testosterone for a slight bump in testosterone. It's not like steroids at all. It's nature. And dude, I swear, like I ate two of them and each one was like this big, freaking expensive as hell. But I swear my beard stubble rose up higher on my cheek and I felt like stronger and everything. Like it's like magic. And well, it's not like steroids. Like I said, like the level it increases is so slight, but I never fucking had hair up all the way up here, dude. It's like hair's growing up higher on my cheek. And yeah, I took a video of me eating the testicles, so I got a lot of footage to work with in terms of editing it and try to craft videos out of it.
Yeah. It's tricky. Yeah, I've had similar thoughts about social media. Like I just because I know that simply acquiring eyeballs actually might not be good for society. Like putting out videos that literally just is to attract attention for
Yeah,
attention's sake does not help the world. It actually
does it?
it actually hurts the world.
Yep. So you're
You
taking
are
the time away.
If you're attracting eyeballs solely to attract eyeballs, you're hurting the world. So yeah, I've been thinking about that too. It's like, okay, I want to put content out there that helps, but I also need you need the fucking eyeballs
Yeah.
to
You
make a
need
difference.
both.
Yeah,
Yep.
you
Yep.
need both. So yeah, I'm thinking exactly like you, which is I need to do something that's entertaining, that gets viewers, that delivers value, but don't lose sight of that. Like you need to be delivering value. And
Yeah.
if you don't, you're wasting people's time and you're wasting society's time.
Exactly. Time is really valuable. So it's like if you just take that without giving anything, that's bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, it's hard to create a work that has that value, that rewatchability. Like, there's certain works that will stand the test of time, like the Jurassic Park 1993 movie. You could rewatch that over and over. Harry Potter, songs, people replay songs all the time. And so I'm trying to make a video where I write a script and I rewatch the video after it's polished and I kind of like watch it from a viewer's perspective. I also get constructive criticism from people whenever I can. And I'm trying to like fix on little aspects of the video, like the pacing, the music, the emotion that the music is conveying at the right scenes, and trying to like refine all those little things to create like this work of art in a video and then have that be published. And if it continuously gets views, I know that it's providing information, encouragement, inspiration. Like, dude, I'm satisfied with that. And I want to get into that flow of popping out videos consistently that are like that. Yeah, it's hard though. Videos are complicated. There are a lot of factors, a lot of moving parts to just making a video. Yeah.
I didn't, because I had never, put out any content before. I didn't appreciate the time that it takes. Like yeah, it's work.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, we should
Yeah,
totally
this is
connect.
one of the longest ones I did. We started at what, 11?
Yeah.
11. So yeah, 2 hours and 10 minutes in. Yeah. I'm about to go to a farm in 2 hours that's very close to my house. They want me over with my Nikon camera and tripod because dude,
Cool.
they have a forest where they let their sheep run around. I'm so grateful I live next to this farm. Like I kind of ignored their presence because I didn't know like it's 90 acres. I only ever saw the front. And today 2 days ago I visited and they're like they gave me a tour that they usually don't give to people, but they showed me around the whole farm. Dude, it's like a nature oasis. So I'm about to go there in at 3 p.m.
That's awesome.
But yeah,
Well,
bro,
thanks for connecting to that. Yeah, we'll definitely connect again in the future. And I came away from this. I now learned a lot about, ecology, and you made me think about things that I had not thought about previously. So I appreciate your perspective.
same here with the whole, I wrote it down. I wrote down a bunch of things you said. Orthomolecular medicine is something now that I'm interested in. Like, I didn't know that that had been slept on, so I'm about to learn a little bit about that.
Cool.
Awesome, dude. Thanks a lot for doing this. I'll have this edited. I can't say that word right now, and then sent out to you in like a week because I got things backlogged that I got to work on. But yeah,
Cool.
I'll send it to you once it's done.
Sounds good. Cool. It's been
All
a
right.
pleasure.
All
Cheers.
right. Have a good one. See ya.